know you are always dressed up. Robert. Hello.
There she goes again. Now are we ready?
I know.
Poor Kim. I'm sorry. Okay, so we will call this meeting to order. Our Board of Education regular meeting on this Wednesday, January 18th at 6:03 p.m. If we could please start with a roll call.
Denise Jones,
Yes.
Michael Miller,
Present.
Rachel Merriman,
Yes.
Judy Rayson.
Yes.
Kim Leonard, yes, Claudia Parker,
Yes.
Colleen Clemzak,
Yes.
all present.
Excellent. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have no additions or deletions to the agenda this time around, so we got that going for us. If we could take a moment and look it over, and then if I may have a first to approve the agenda as presented.
I will first.
Thank you, and a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Judy. And a roll call.
Claudia Parker,
Yes.
Judy Rayson,
Yes.
Kim Leonard, yes, Rachel Merriman,
Yes.
Michael Miller,
Okay.
Denise Jones,
Yes.
Colleen Clemzak.
Yes.
Motion has approved for the agenda.
Excellent, thank you so much. I will pass the baton.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So first on our agenda for this evening is a report from our newly appointed D124 Foundation President. I'd like to welcome Ms. Samantha Craig. And we just came from our first foundation meeting led and facilitated by you, and you did a fabulous job.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Woodland and the Board of Education. My name is Samantha Morak, and it is my honor to be the new president of the D124 Foundation. On December 10th, we hosted our annual Grinch Breakfast at Central Middle School. This event was generously sponsored by the McDonald's located at 103rd and Kedzie. They have sponsored our Grinch Breakfast for a few years now. We cannot thank them enough for their continued support, not only of our foundation, but of our booster clubs. They host fundraising nights there frequently. The breakfast was also supported by Culver's, Dunkin' Donuts, and Wolf's Bakery, allowing us to profit over $400. We are actively working on securing a date for our POP fundraising event. Last year, this event raised over $38,000, and we have an ambitious goal this year of $45,000.
Wow.
This event has become our main fundraiser and allows us to support our buildings, teachers, and families throughout the year. We welcomed a few new board members to the foundation in the recent month, Erin Scudder and Nilda Ramirez, and I thank them for accepting this role and supporting the foundation. We have lots of fun things planned for this year, and I thank you all for all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What was that the date of, is that what she's talking about,
The spring.
Yeah, the
Steam-
spring
steam pop?
steam pop event.
Steam
Steam,
sorry,
yeah,
steam
that
engine,
was
there
so
we
cool
go.
last year,
Yeah.
so
It was.
excited.
It was well received and we're still finalizing details, so more to come.
Do we spend down like our budget annually for the teachers to be able to get their needs met?
You know, that's a great question. So the foundation has really worked to kind of shift their focus. And so they're working to really support students in need, and there's a request for assistance that actually is facilitated by the building principal and our school social worker. In the event, there's a family that needs some additional support, so that's one way in which the funding is utilized. The other way the funding is utilized is in relationship to the building leadership team. They bring recommendations to their staff, and then they make a recommendation on what to spend that for. So we've really, for example, the Gaga Pit at Northeast is something that was utilized, and Carrie Berry is so excited to finally have. And I actually think Central plans on getting one with their foundation money as well.
Nice.
So what do you just split it all 5
We
ways?
split it 5 ways evenly then,
Okay.
yes. And there's still the intent with the foundation to keep money like in reserves in the event that we have like upcoming events that we also want to support.
Okay, so I know in the past, we used to, you know, if there was a teacher that had a need for their classroom.
Sure.
And they were spending money out of their own pocket. So that's what we had done like in the past years. So do we have any of those requests anymore? And are we taking any of those requests in consideration?
So what the foundation has really done is shifted their focus, and it was mainly due to the fact that there were staff members that we weren't really getting requests from staff. And
So there's not a need.
there's not a need. So what we've really done is really focused on principals still bringing this like dollar amount, I'll say, to their building leadership team to still get staff feedback on what to spend the money on. So it's still directly tied to their buildings and our kids.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Great questions.
That is a good question.
All right. Any other foundation questions? All right, perfect. I look forward to our upcoming fundraisers. All right, our next update is from Mr. Jim Hennessy, our Director of Facilities, regarding our recent Health Life Safety Report.
Hello.
Hi.
So on December 13th, we had our annual health and life safety inspection. And we didn't get 100% this time. However, all the areas that are accessible to staff and students, 100% compliance. So the only issues that they came up with were some storage issues. Some stuff was stacked a little too high, close to the ceiling in some areas, but none of it affected teaching, learning, or anything like that. So most of those things were corrected that day. If not, we got them done over the break. But the Dr. Sabatino, who came through with his team, he did say, and I'll quote, he was very impressed with the condition of the buildings. They're safe, clean, well-maintained, and provide positive learning environments. So they're very happy with.
Look at that.
I know, nice.
So
That's great to hear.
other than that, I just want to thank the staff for helping get everything ready.
Yeah,
And
of course.
sometimes things get a little disorganized throughout the year, but we were able to get everything in place, so it went well.
That's
Yeah,
never,
especially all the construction you guys
oh,
had.
sure. And that's never a once and done. So,
Oh, no, it's something we
well, I
gotta-
mean, it's once and done that it's done, that was completed, but
we have to
that's
ma-
the
we have to
hard work.
maintain.
Exactly, that's the hard work, all 12 months of getting that where it needs to be and then keeping it where it needs to be. So thank you so much for making that happen.
Was this the first year you didn't get 100%? Because you said it was such ambiguity.
Oh, look
Yeah.
I mean, my heart is broken for you because the way you came up here was like the walk of shame. You
I
need to
was
give
just-
yourself a little break.
I was just glad that none of the violations that they found, nothing was major. It was just
lower
reorganizing
boxes.
some things, maybe getting rid of a couple of things.
Right.
But none of it affected teaching or learning, so they were happy to see that.
I'm glad you led with that.
And we know how hard buildings
Oh
and
my
grounds
gosh.
work, so
Yes.
you're gonna get a pass out of me.
Oh, also, the mobile at Southeast got its new roof today, so
Yes, so thank you very much for
Yes.
that.
All right,
Yes.
finally. It looks good.
great.
Awesome, thank you.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Our next report is directly tied to our curricular goals to increase the overall academic achievement and growth of student learning. This will be led and facilitated by Dr. Carlson and our building principals to demonstrate our growth and achievement scores on our recent benchmark data.
Yes, so we take these STAR benchmark assessment, we take it 3 times a year, so they take it in the fall and then again in the winter, and then again in the spring, and it really allows us to see student growth over the course of the school year. Our goal is obviously to get students at that meets or exceeds level on the STAR, which is a little bit different than IAR. but we wanna get students to that level. So the principals will be sharing out how each of the classes did, both in reading and in math, on that achievement level, but then also, as we talked about with our with ESSA and with our designations, growth is so important. So we wanna make sure that we're also demonstrating that student growth, and so they'll share that as well with the average their average percentage of growth. So they have that, and then they also have prepared some slides to show what they're actually doing within the classes to respond to what they're seeing and some things that they were already doing. So I'm not sure who goes first. Do you all know? Northwest.
Northwest.
Thanks, Shannon.
Welcome, Dr. Bannon.
Hello.
So the first slide is, shows our reading achievement for STAR. So the first column is the fall benchmarks, what they did in the fall, and then obviously the second was the winter. So the achievement just looks how they did overall, and then the growth, for growth, the STAR would say that they would want it to be at 35 or above for SGP. Once again, SGP is student growth percentile. So it's like if you lined everyone else who scored similarly, it's the percentage of students that our students did better than. So like an SGP of 70 means our students did on average better than 70% of the other students who started at a similar spot in the nation. So like I said, STAR would say the SGP should be at around 35. The district has the goal of 50 for the SGP. So reading, we saw some good growth. Achievement, we're still working on. We have a few grades that need a little bit more support than others, but the growth is moving in the right direction for reading.
Can you
The
go
next-
back real quick
Sure.
for like, alright, so fifth grade where it says 28 to 30, so in the fall they were benchmarked at 28%.
So 28% met or exceeded the expectations.
So how come it's still like, so it just is, I don't understand this, so just help me. 28 to 32%, and then it has an SGP of 60, but 63 is for like almost 9% growth in fourth grade. Am I totally not looking at
So
something
let me
right?
specify the difference between achievement and growth. So achievement is how students are performing like on a target, a grade level target. But we want all students to grow. So this is the percentage of students that met their growth target.
Even if it's below.
And part of it is,
Well,
part
let's
of it's
see.
gonna depend as well, that SGP is gonna depend on where they started. So
Mhm.
some of their scores might have been considerably lower initially, so they're going to have more growth to get to that 32. Because
So-
maybe their original scale score was lower, so their growth is going to be more. If you have a student who's getting, say, 90% anyway, they're gonna show smaller growth
Sure.
at the end. So it could be where those scores started, it's not gonna be just like 9 points to 9 points, it's gonna depend on that initial
Okay,
scale
you see what I'm
score.
saying, like when I look at that last column, I'm like, that's really weird that it's only a 3-point difference. But these are the students in the this is a number of students in the last column.
And they're compared to other students who had that same
No.
initial scale score.
It's growth. So, for example, like
I heard you all go through.
so just give an example, like we could have a student come in at the 20th percentile,
Uh-huh.
and they might jump up to the 40th percentile.
Okay.
So they have a lot of growth, but they're still not meeting the achievement
Mhm.
expectations.
Gotcha, okay.
The 50th
Yeah.
percentile.
Okay,
Yes.
now I gotcha.
So they would show up as the growth side, their growth would be greater than average, but they're not showing up on the left side where they're meeting or exceeding
Okay,
expectations.
I gotcha now. Sorry, I was like, only the bottom number was like, that just kind of threw me.
Correct. And that's, I should have prefaced, like, we actually we've gotten a lot of transfers in the upper grades, and with COVID and everything, we've seen them coming in lower, and having more gaps that we need to fill. But I should have said thank you to our teachers, they've done a great job with all this, you can see the growth expectations, they've done a fantastic job with these scores.
I mean, look at kindergarten.
Yeah, kindergarten's
No,
amazing.
that's amazing.
So then the next slide shows math. So just to remind you, we've also had a new math curriculum this year. So scores once again are above the 35th, the 35 that STAR would say, a little bit lower than the 50 in a few grade levels. But if you look at like second grade, like the achievement, we would hope that 80% or above would be at the meeting or exceeding at least, and we're knocking on the door there. And then fifth grade, we're very close to that 50 percentile. So like I said, teachers have done a great job this year. Fourth grade has shown tremendous growth. Second grade showed good growth, even though the SGP doesn't show it. So I think things are moving in the right direction. right now. And then just some of our action plans, so we have after school help for our students for homework help where they hone in on the skills that they need more support in. This year, we've talked about like executive functioning skills and just helping students kind of more with the bigger picture of how to be successful in all subject areas. And then in terms of like the actual curriculum help that we've been doing this year, we've had the reading medal program where we encourage students to read outside. We have our small group instruction that we use within the classroom. And then this year, since we have the new math curriculum, we've done very intentional grade level unit planning to look at the integration of standards within our units. And our coaching has been especially focused on math this year, the coaches have been focusing more on the lesson planning, where with grade levels, we've been looking at the whole unit planning just to make sure we're covering the standards and then doing it in a way that's conducive to student learning. So, questions? All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great discussion, great questions. Okay, Southwest.
Matt, I feel like always goes first, Dr. Bannock, because he has to explain SGP.
I was now we won't be putting Scott on the.
That's good.
Yeah, right?
So now that's over.
Now we know. That's good.
It's a good representation of how our kids are growing relative to similar students, right? And that's what we wanna see, that 50 number that our district set lets us know when we hit that, right? Our students are growing faster than other students, right? We're above that 50th percentile, and that's a testament to our teachers, who, you know, are with them every day. And so here's Southwest reading scores. And so we had some really strong growth, like Matt was mentioning, those SGP scores are good, so we're recognizing that even if our kids are coming in maybe a little bit higher, they're still growing at a fast rate, which is difficult to do as a teacher when you have a variety of levels in your classroom. To be able to differentiate for all of those different ability levels is not always easy, and our teachers do a really nice job with that. And then math scores as well. We tested some of our first graders with the math test. Based on some of their reading scores, they can qualify to take the math test. So not all of our first graders qualified for that, but we did. 39 students did take that, so we were able to get a gross score for them in math as well. And so again, just strong growth, continuing to reach those kids at a variety of ability levels. So as far as our action plan goes, we're gonna certainly celebrate the success. Strong instruction is happening. Teachers are really doing a good job of meeting students from across spectrums at where they're at. And as the building at Southwest has turned over with some retirements the past couple of years, bringing those new teachers into the fold and giving those teachers opportunities to plan and work together has been really impactful for our new staff. Continuing to look at the holistic experience and what extracurricular opportunities we're offering and what supports we're offering for students is a goal of ours. As a building leadership team, a SIT team, we are also looking at some of that state assessment data in how we can grow on that. And so teachers are reflecting in the upper grades that take the IAR on some of those standards where we may have some opportunity for growth. So we're not only looking at the STAR data, but also the IAR data as well. And then we're finishing a cycle of after-school support this week for students. And so our next round, we typically target students who fall between the 25th and the 50th percentile that might not qualify for in-school supports, but are still right there. Our fourth grade, if you go back one slide, Mr. Lee, we had 10 students who had an SGP score between 40 and 50, right? And so in fourth grade math, and so they were right there. And so those are the kids who might not qualify for in-school interventions, but given some after-school opportunities, we can slide them into the next bucket, so to speak. And so being intentional with those groupings in the upcoming months is a goal of ours for curriculum. Coaching, like everybody else, that's been a measure that we're working on, and so we've been excited to work with Dr. Dale and Keith when he comes back to build the capacity of our coaches and then share that knowledge with the teachers. And then we're looking continuing to build that culture of literacy, working with Ms. Patilaran, who just does an amazing job in our media center, getting awesome books into hands of kids. But how can we make that just a part of what we do? And teachers have some creative ideas. Fifth grade's currently doing a race to 50 books, I believe, and there's a bulletin board that's visible for everybody to see, and the kids get to move their little avatar throughout the year as they check off some of their personal goals that they've set. So things like that.
Are you all finding that new curriculum, Eureka, to be challenging for the students or the teachers?
For the
or
math?
The math?
Yeah.
Or where you kind of expected it to be by it being a new?
I think for some students, it's a little bit new, right? So we used Eureka previously in the intermediate grades, 3 through 5. So we have some students who are familiar with the way that lessons are presented, the way that the teachers deliver their instruction. But if you are, let's say, a first grader or a second grader, you haven't been exposed to Eureka in the same way that someone maybe like a fifth grader has. And so I think there's some adjustment, but I think teachers seem to like the concept of increasing conceptual understanding for kids, and that depth over breadth component that Eureka is really big on. And it's nice to have something that's just continuous, right? That's how Eureka's built. It's a story of numbers, so to speak, I think is how they posit their curriculum. And so it's nice to have that continuity for kids.
And it's good that it's district-wide.
Yep.
And now starting at first through fifth.
Kindergarten, yep,
through
everybody
fifth
gets it,
grade.
yep.
That's
Kindergarten
through
through fifth,
sixth
so that's
grade.
good.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Miss Carrie Berry, Northeast.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going? Okay, so Northeast School, I just want to say and preface that we are thrilled about our progress, seen from fall to winter, as you can see. Our staff, teachers, paras, our coaches, we have really strong coaching cycles happening at Northeast on a daily basis, are all working hard to meet the individual needs of students, really getting to know them, their background, if they're suffering from any type of trauma, addressing SEL first. That's like our primary concern right now, making sure that kids are in a good mindset and frame of mind to even learn. So we really capitalized on that early fall, and then we're just continuing to try to close those pandemic gaps. So we are thrilled, and I wanna again celebrate my staff and how teacher effectiveness is really the number one reason why students achieve. And I also wanna say kudos to Dr. Carlson and the work that the curriculum department is doing, because my staff has fully bought into like the high quality tier 1 instruction, kind of taking this 2 years to audit what we've been doing and then in what direction we wanna go, and we're all on the same page. So some celebration, our kindergarten's numbers are phenomenal, probably the best that we've ever seen. We do have 3 classes, so the class size is a little, they're smaller because we have over
Yes, thank you for that.
53 students. And I am really passionate about early intervention, and I know the kindergarten team is as well. So we saw this great improvement, 44 in the fall, now at 79% that met and exceeded. So it's funny because their needs overall academically might not come true, but social and emotionally and behaviors are kind of what we're working on with this class. So just kind of, just goes to show everyone has their goals. First grade also did great.
Yeah, look at that.
I can say this is the first time as a principal or an assistant principal that all of our grade levels met the SGP target the district set at 50. So, and I wanna say 4th and 5th grade, I noticed a trend at Northwest so far and at Southwest. 4th and 5th, you can look, the margin like decreases a little bit. So, there's a lot, we did get some transfers as well. Like kind of some motivating factors, trying to have the students now buy in to what they're doing and why they're doing it. So we're working on them as well. And then for math, my staff loves Eureka Squared. And they were, of course, like anything new, you know, they had a really, it was a little shaky at first and everyone kind of gave their input, but you know, now they know the resource and they're able to prioritize what they need to teach. But again, you know, I'm really happy, fourth grade did phenomenal. And I saw another school did really well in fourth grade as well, so I think it was Northwest. So yeah, we're thrilled. I said we set the bar high now for our winter, so we have to keep going. I feel like we're in a great cycle right now. But again, couldn't do it without staff and support from the curriculum department. And I just feel like we're on the right path to, you know, to great things, so.
Yes.
I feel like your competitive nature of coaching very nicely in building leadership.
I do have a tad little competitiveness to me, yes. And my staff knows too, but yeah, so what we've been doing, I kind of want to summarize kind of what we have been doing different and what we're going to continue to do. So again, buy in and own that strategic plan as part of our plan too. And work with my building leadership to implement that. And I think for this year, they are more a part of that plan than ever before, you know, and just kind of, you know, now it's transferring over, you know, through osmosis, you know, through the rest of the staff. Our homeschool partnership, you know, I really am working on this. We're going to hold a math night, ice skating party, PBIS family night. I want parents to get into our building more and become more involved, because that is only going to strengthen student achievement as well. I said that we're really capitalizing on SEL programs, so mentoring. We've been using our mentoring program and mentors. You know, today you just see it happening. I have, you know, Dr. Carlson coming in to have lunch with one of her mentees and another EC paraprofessional having lunch with another student. It's just awesome, and students feel like that Northeast is a safe place now and that they can trust the adults like in the building. And then we're working closely with the Center for Self-Actualization, and we have therapists coming into our building as well and working with our students in crisis. And then after school, just more fun groups. Again, I want to make sure I give Northeast students opportunity. So there's, you know, Taekwondo, and then now we have Spanish club. We are also going to offer, I'm hoping, we did a chorus club too for Veterans Day. So just kind of like an on the win thing, just to make them feel involved and, you know, have some responsibility. We're gonna continue to analyze data to drive our small group instruction. If you walk in our classrooms, all of our teachers are utilizing small group instruction. And then we're going to continue with our high quality tier 1 instructional goals, you know, and follow that plan. So, and we're working with Jen Dale, so I have some, you know, teacher leaders that are on that committee as well. So yeah, all good things. We're
I
excited.
felt like the Institute Day speaker, what was his name?
Greg Wolcott.
Greg,
Yeah, he provided a lot of very grab it out of the toolbox, use this real quick as far as that
Yeah.
relationship building. Did you find that your staff was able to take anything away, or did it seem like, oh, it's more of the
No.
same?
It was perfect timing, because after being gone for 2 weeks, you know, you're like, where do you start? What do you do? And I just said, use that first day, use one of his ideas, use 3 of his ideas.
Right.
Just to kind of get kids back into like the rhythm and really getting to know one another. I mean, the quote today that I read from Dr. Martin Luther King is that if you don't take the time to communicate and really make an effort, you're never going to get to know everyone's story. So that's kind of the message, is that everyone has a story, and the more and more I find out about, you know, families and their stories, then we can set a plan on how to support them.
Yeah, I love that, the calendar, the relationship calendar.
Oh, right, and just kind of
That was
keeping.
amazing. Yeah, okay, thank you.
No,
Doing a
thank you.
great job.
You're
And I
doing
just
an
wanna say
excellent
thank-
job over there, just to kind of piggyback on what Claudia said, you and the staff members over there are doing an amazing job. I love the numbers, and my son comes home and he's excited every single day to go to that school, so thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
And thank you to the board. I know in early August, you know, we had a request of You never know how many kindergartners you're gonna get, and I think Carrie had 53 and we only had 2 sections, and we came to the board with a request and you honored that request, and I definitely see that impact in their numbers, so we appreciate that.
And then
Sure.
we held out and hired the right person, so we did that, so the stars definitely aligned, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, Southeast.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so this is our reading data here at Southeast. Some highlights, again, kindergarten looking, 36% of our students meeting and exceeding in the fall to 59% now is a big jump. We do have a little higher, we have 19 and 20 students in our kindergarten classes this year, and so I think that did kind of play a role in that. Second grade from 43 to 63% was a big jump in terms of how many kids are meeting and exceeding. Third grade as well, 46 to 59. And then even in fourth grade, where we see that we want more students than 40% of our students meeting and exceeding in fourth grade, but they did start with 23% of their students, so that again is a big jump and moving in the right direction. In terms of growth, again, we're kind of aiming for that 50 to have that average growth compared to their peers. So highlight is second grade at 62, and then third, fourth, and fifth kind of right in that 50 range. For math, looking at second grade, again, a huge jump from 52% to 74. And I echo like what everyone else has said in terms of our students, or our teachers love Eureka and have felt like really supported in that process of implementing a new math curriculum. I also just shout out to my teachers as well. I think that, again, they make the biggest difference within our classroom, and some these areas of growth are really from the work they do every day. Fourth grade, again, from 28% to 42%. So again, we'd like to see that achievement at a higher percentage, but when we look at that growth, we're excited about what we see in fourth grade. And then again, when we look at that SGP, we're aiming for that 50, and so a highlight would be like fourth grade at 59. So some of the things that we kind of already were doing was providing that after school supplemental time. We did move from a instructional coach / interventionist to having a full-time interventionist and a full-time coach. And when we really looked at our data and where that coach has been supporting, we did see differences in those classrooms, really where that coach has kind of spent more of her time at the beginning of the year. So we're excited about that work and looking to kind of, as we look at this middle of the year data, implementing that coach's support in some of those grade levels where we felt like we didn't see as much growth. The Tier 1 instructional framework, again, this has been a focus throughout the district, but our leadership team as well has really supported this work, and through those learning walks, I think we're starting to kind of just learn from each other and get ideas from each other. Small group has been a focus throughout the year. Class size is a huge benefit. Like our class size average is 16 students per class, and I would say that all of our teachers would say that makes a huge difference within their classrooms. And then having that devoted time for math in our PLCs has also made a big difference. Kind of just some focus areas administratively. The first 3 are kind of on me and Kathleen as the admin team. So just more frequent feedback. We want to give more ongoing feedback through informal observations. Kind of every week, we hope to do that. Celebrating strong instructional practices, so again, providing opportunities for teachers to share best practices, and then also us being more intentional about really celebrating what we see within our classroom. So whether that's on Twitter or in our newsletter, but we're, really kind of, we are seeing, great moments of strong instructional practices that we just want to be able to share with others and even within our building, and just doing a better job at that. And then data-focused conversations. Prior to recently, I'll be honest, we really focused on our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 kids and supports that they needed. And today we had grade level meetings that really looked at growth. And so looking at all of our students and those SGP numbers, and then having conversations with teachers about how does that impact their instruction every day in the classroom, and just reflective conversations on that. And so it was, I thought, very beneficial today for teachers to kind of just reflect on their own practices and say, how does this data kind of impact my everyday instruction moving forward? Some focus areas on we're asking our teachers to kind of focus on is just maximizing instructional time throughout their day. And so really looking at their day and how are they utilizing their time throughout the day. So if they are pulling a small group, what does it look like? How are we supporting the other students within the classroom at that time is one example that we kind of talked through today. Just lesson planning structure is a part of the high quality tier 1 rubric. So what is in all of our lessons, like seeing that the lesson planning is evident, lesson launch, whole group, small group, and then that lesson closure has kind of just been a focus area that we're asking teachers to kind of concentrate on. And then the last thing is just student discourse and accountable talk. So again, as we're going through walkthroughs, as we're meeting in PLCs, looking at what is that dialogue between students look like within the classroom and how is that supporting student learning.
I just wanted to ask in regards to the full-time instructional coach.
Yeah.
So what, how do you utilize the time of that coach since now they're full-time?
Yeah.
Like, is it more of a need in one particular classroom that you felt like you needed, or?
Yeah. It's been a combination, so it's kind of been like she has made herself, known to the staff of obviously like I'm here to support and people can reach out to her directly for support. So it might be like, I need help setting up small groups within my classroom for math, or I'm having a hard time pacing my math lessons, and she'll directly help in those situations. It also may be like grade levels coming to her about like planning, and then she'll meet with the whole grade level in planning. I'm also coming to her saying, hey, this is our middle of the year data. This is where I would like you to support with some of our grade levels when we're looking at like when we're not meeting that growth target that we're looking for. So it's a combination of, I think, still trying to figure out that best balance of how to utilize her time. But right now it's people coming to her, it's her kind of reaching out to people, it's establishing that relationship. She's been a teacher in our building for years, so it looks different and establishing that relationship as a coach. I think it's been kind of a learning process for all of us that we're just kind of continuing to kind of figure out how to best utilize.
Sure. Yeah, I know it can kind of get a little hairy if I'm seeing a lot of growth because I'm using the coach, and then another teacher's like, wait, hold on. I
think
need
it's the
some of that
culture that you
over
build. I
here.
think we're all like trying to support each other, and I think we know that some people may reach out more to a coach and some people don't, or we have new teachers that, she one of the focus areas has been new teachers, and so she's invested in our new teachers more than other teachers because, they're new and they're just, learning things. And so I do think it's I don't sense that. Like, I sense that she's here to help everybody, and that we're, people are just kind of getting comfortable in terms of like when to utilize it, when not to. And part of the conversations today were even, this could be a great opportunity for Lisa to come in and support you within the classroom. And just reminding them that she's there and available sometimes, I think, is also, the first year of it, we're still figuring out.
Do your coaches ever model?
Yeah.
Like the facilitation direct?
Yeah, she's co-taught, she's, one of the things that Keith has done in the training with our coaches is provide all these different ways of coaching. And so she's co-taught, she's modeled lessons, she's done, there's a whole series of different coaching techniques, and she's tried, like, she's still learning and trying those techniques as well.
Good.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And I hope that the teachers try to utilize her.
Yeah, I think they are,
Pull on her, pull her more, cause she can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
She's
sure.
built
She
for it,
absolutely
you can
can.
tell.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Great, Central?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Great. All right, so when we take a look at our data, there are some things to celebrate, but to be candid, there's also a lot of work to do. As I look at the data, as we've done some evaluation of the data, we could talk a little bit more about that. And you could kind of take a look at, for our reading scores in terms of the growth. There was some growth in our 6th and 7th grade. I call it, obviously, it's minimal growth, but it was there. And then we take a look at our 8th grade, and we actually saw a little bit of a decline from fall to winter benchmark. When we talked about that administratively, that's obviously something we need to dive into a little bit more. We can't just chalk it up to 8th grade-itis, obviously. We can't chalk it up to that. There might be looking into the fact that we've been piloting a couple different programs, reading programs this year, and that might have something to do with it as well, because teachers are not only teaching the curriculum, but they're trying to figure out the pilot and how to incorporate that successfully. So there's obviously some work to do. Obviously, we hit the 50% mark with 7th and 8th grade in terms of the district goal, which is good. But we have to take a look at what's going on with 6th grade as well in terms of that growth score. Those are our reading scores. Math is a little bit better, as you can see, in terms of the achievement, the growth and achievement from fall to winter for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We'd like to see that, obviously the median SGB for 6th and 7th grade grow. Probably a little bit better, we have Eureka that's fully implemented in 6th grade. We're piloting it in 7th grade with the goal for full implementation next year. And then in 8th grade, they're gonna pilot it next year with full implementation as well. And we're getting some positive feedback regarding the Eureka implementation as well. So things to take a look at, a lot of work to do, as I said earlier. Obviously continue to strengthen our home school partnerships. That has a positive impact. And a lot of that we're looking at is how we are communicating with our families and working with our staff to make sure that they're communicating with our families more directly, things like phone calls, setting up meetings, not completely relying on things like email. You know, when you're having good one-on-one direct conversation, that makes a difference, and we're moving in that direction. And that's how you form those partnerships. Somebody said earlier, you can't have student achievement unless you have those partnerships and those relationships with parents, and that's important. In addition to other things that we want to take a look at in terms of bringing families in is important, but making those connections and building those relationships are critical. Reinforcing the successful examples, of effective Tier 1 instructional practices. We've talked as an administrative team, we're working with our instructional coaches to do more focused walkthroughs moving forward, picking different parts of that high quality Tier 1 instruction and focusing in. So when we talk about things like accountable talks and having a theme, and we're actually gonna pick monthly themes. The first one's gonna be in February, accountable talks, making sure we're familiar with what it looks like, working with our instructional coaches to make sure that our staff is familiar, and then going in, doing walkthroughs and doing kind of assessments and celebrations based on what we are seeing. First with accountable talks, the month after that's gonna be success criteria, and I think in April, we're gonna be doing learning targets. So that's gonna be, and that's different. It's different than just coming in and doing walkthroughs just to see what's going on. We do that anyways, see what's going on with the students, see what's going on with curriculum instruction, but now to have more of a focus, more of a purpose with that. And that's something that we're working on and we're gonna be planning on doing. Striving towards teachers sharing successful instructional practices. Other ideas we're talking about is getting teachers to go into their colleagues' rooms and doing some peer observations and debriefing. That's always tricky, and we've had some of that already, not a lot, to be honest, but a lot, but really looking to do that, because that's the best way when they're learning from each other. So our PBIS reboot, when I came in this year, all I kept hearing is how we needed to reboot. And it's not just at Central, we've talked about it as a district as well, but we've started to do things because that creates the structure and the environment in the classroom, that consistency across the grade levels, across the school, in terms of student expectations and teaching those expectations and reteaching those expectations. And we've done work in order to reboot PBIS at our school, and we're gonna continue to do that. Celebrate the many positive things at CMS, that just builds momentum, and we need to make sure that we're doing that. And obviously there's a lot of different ways to do that. Social media is a big tool, and we've used a lot of that this year. And to keep doing that and encouraging our teachers to make sure they're celebrating what's going on in their classrooms. Stronger emphasis on SEL. It's proven that unless the students are well, if they need to be in a good place in order to be able to learn and grow successfully. So we have to continue to focus on our SEL efforts. We're actually making some revisions to our advisory program and bringing in a new advisory program that we're gonna start actually this year that our teachers are excited about. From a company called You Can Do. I thank you, Dr. Carlson has kind of helped move that along, and that was something. But also incorporating SEL within instruction. So things like when we're talking about cooperative learning and the value of learning how to interact with each other, how to work with each other, that's an SEL practice. How to handle failure and how to overcome when you make mistakes to learn and grow. That's SEL, and making sure that we're continually starting to incorporate those into our curriculum and instruction. And that leads into curriculum instruction assessment, just a continuous analysis and a review of our ELA pilots as well as our math curriculum updates. Continued focus on tier one instruction, high quality tier one instruction, and focus on training our staff, guiding our staff, and making sure that they are focused on improving in that area. And then grade level department star data analysis. Jenny Daly is quarterbacked putting together data talks that are going to be beginning in the second part of the year. You know, and we just started those meetings this week. And the focus of those data talks are not just gonna be looking at data and seeing where students are, but also looking at that data and how can that drive our instruction to meet their needs both individually and collectively. You know, so those are the plans and things that we're going to be doing moving forward.
I wanted to ask a question as it relates to the communication with the teacher and the parents.
Sure.
So, I mean, you know, an elementary school teacher might have 20 kids, but for junior high, like, how many kids might that one teacher be responsible for in their subject?
Well, 100, yeah,
Right, so
sure.
how does that communication work?
There's different levels of communication. One is just making sure that families are aware of what their students are doing in their classrooms, you know, and there's different ways to do it. A good way of doing it is just making sure families know how to access Google Classroom.
Okay,
You know,
so,
so they can go onto their son or daughter's Google Classroom accounts and see what they're doing. Power School is another tool where they can get onto Power School and they can check their students' progress and their grades. And making sure, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we're updating that as
right,
frequently as possible. Next level of that is students that need extra support. You know, they're struggling for whatever reason. It's making sure that families are aware of that. They know that we're calling you and saying, hey, you know, we're worried about Claudia. She's struggling right now in math, whether it be behaviorally or academically. Just wanna make sure any ideas, anything that we can do that you can think of. And then depending on how that goes, it may lead to meetings, you know, we bring them in. They do have team time every day, so that's a great opportunity to bring families in of students who need extra support, you know, and where you, but doing that.
I was just wanting to make sure you weren't putting the expectation of making all your teachers call them.
No. You know what I meant by that? No, I'm glad you brought that up. What I meant by that, when I thought of that, I'm talking about the students that are struggling,
Sure,
that need that extra
yeah.
support. And sometimes I think you can't just rely on sending emails to keep you posted.
Sure.
You know, when we
Right.
know that we need to partner, it's we're picking up the phone, we're giving you a call. You know, and that's also, we can find out and learn more what's going on. You know, why is your son, is there something going on that we need to know about, that you can share with us that can help us better understand where your child's coming from, so we can develop a plan on how to best support the child.
Sure.
You know, and you only get that, you don't get that through emails, you get that through phone calls or meeting, you know, bringing families in.
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Joe.
Great, I just wanted to say thank you to each of our principals and of course Dr. Carlson for all your work regarding this. It's high level work, right? And it's very detailed and there's a lot of attention that they put into this and I appreciate their dedication. Something that makes me really happy is to see that there's cohesiveness throughout all 5 presentations. And I don't know if they planned it, but it made me really happy that all 5 of them were talking about our tier 1 implementation systems and our tier 1 instructional framework, because that's super important to our connection to teachers and our curriculum and how we really move the needle on student achievement. So thank you so much. Sorry, Eric, money.
You're good. Statement of expenditures, outside of our normal increases with the salaries and benefits, we had one expenditure I wanted to point out this month in December. We have our debt service payment every June and December 1st, so that was our main payment of the $1,261,000 in December. Revenues went up roughly $4 million over the past month. This is solely because we are starting to see tax money coming in. There's still a bit of room to catch up to where we should be right now, so we'll see hopefully some more coming in January.
Just to be clear, that catch-up that's necessary is a result of the state is doing what it does with tax dollars, not anything we've done.
You know, yeah, it's just a delay in
Good question.
revenues for us, so where we were last year versus now, there's like $3 million more that we received last year than we did right now, so.
Thank you, Eric.
As a result, the fund balances have gone up as, you know, due to us receiving our tax revenues. Dan Lee and I have been working on a new electronic payment system called RevTrack. This will make it easier for family members to electronically pay for their children's fees. RevTrack has integration capabilities with PowerSchool. This integration allows for the fees to show up on RevTrack right when those fees show up on PowerSchool.
Can we just celebrate this? Look at this, Eric.
Nice. Awesome.
This
Sorry.
integration also allows for us to know via PowerSchool when a parent pays for their child's fee through RevTrack. Can you go back one, please? In order to access RevTrack through PowerSchool, you'll need to first log into PowerSchool. Once logged in, you'll go to the navigation area and look for the balance icon. Once you click on the balance icon, it will take you to your child's fee transactions. You'll notice a make a payment button when you go to this part, and when you click on that button, it'll take you directly to the RevTrack store. You will see the fees from PowerSchool laid out in RevTrack when loaded. It's pretty easy to use, and it's just like any online store. Once loaded in, you click on what you want to purchase, and go ahead and check out, and that's it.
Nice.
What you want to
No,
purchase?
what we don't want.
Fees are available.
Great. No, that's really awesome. I mean.
When is this gonna be available?
It's available right now.
Oh.
Nice.
So, yes,
Did a lot of it.
I did a lot of it, so we wanna say thank you to Dan and Eric.
Huge, thank you.
Yes.
And it was definitely a tag team approach, but they came to me with a vision and they made the vision happen. So we will absolutely update our families too in our newsletter to ensure that they know that it's available with some detailed screenshots on how they access this information.
That is such.
Is there like a training video that you guys have done yet that we can put on?
Click here.
I'm serious.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like a training video to
The
watch
one
or
at
something like-
Evergreen at the high school is really hard to pay, so I don't disagree with you. I can never figure out how to pay the fee. Isn't
No
it?
matter how good the video is,
It's-
people are still gonna break it, so I'm just saying like having more resources out there is gonna be
Yeah,
better.
I
we
can
could
keep
make
down.
something that directs people how to get to where they need to go.
Yeah,
for
you can just do a
purchasing.
screen record.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely do that.
No, Michael,
Like
you're
I
an
get
idea.
hired to do that at other districts.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Because Judy is commiserating with me. It's not as easy as you think on
Right.
the high school one. It's like, I don't know, I get kicked out of it. I don't know what I do wrong.
Yeah, it takes more than one try for me, but
Yeah.
you know.
So, no, I'm laughing like,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
that's
you're
actually not a
100%
bad idea.
right.
People might find it helpful.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Those of us who are.
It'll just prevent the phone calls.
Agreed, for sure. Well, we are very excited to have this
Yeah, that's
officially.
great news.
Yes.
And ease of access for our families to provide that service.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
Good job.
Thank you, Dan and Eric.
We don't wanna think about that school yet, but this is
I know I'm looking at graduation fees
big
like,
deal
oh my
to
gosh.
make
I know, right?
things for better for back to school, so that's awesome.
Okay, next up we have Miss Rebecca Terrell from Student Support Services.
I was gonna ask Dr. Zampillo to come up here and present my slides for me. Talking about.
Thought maybe you were gonna.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about PBAS, our initiative. I'm just gonna be very brief, but I wanna just kind of recap on what PBAS is, where D124 is right now in regards to PBAS, like what is our why and why we're relooking at this or talking about this, what we've done and like what is next. So I'm not gonna read this slide verbatim, but I just wanted to point out some of the highlights of the PBAS, which is the positive behavioral interventions and supports. Obviously, it's MTSS data-driven decision-making framework. Something I also wanna highlight is the climate and culture, and then the multi-tiered social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health supports. So that's something that a lot of our staff members had noticed was different than like what they've previously been trained on in regards to PBAS. So that mental health supports, which kind of leads me to, you know, why we're here and where we're at. So obviously, we've been at PBAS schools for years. All of our schools have teams, they all have PBAS expectations, they all have teams in the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 established teams, and they meet regularly. So that's the good news. Some of the things that we're doing in the context of like why, so we're obviously aligned to our strategic plan, and I won't read that out loud, but this is a significant need that we've seen the past couple of years, that social, emotional, mental well-being. You know, Carrie talked about it a little bit, Joe talked about it a little bit. Obviously, our overall outcomes are more instructional time for our students, you know, positive relationships, positive climate, but also, you know, providing them with additional mental health and social emotional supports. So, you know, our why in regards to a little more in depth of our strategic plan, we're creating this integrated team process, or I should say we're revamping this team process, because I feel like PBAS and our teams have always been collaborative, but we're revamping this integrated team process. We're really re-looking at our systems across the district and by trying to be more consistent. Our language, our practices, our resources, how we look at data, what data we're looking at. We're bringing in a broader range of partners, establishing common practices and language across our school community. So where we're going and how we're doing that is we've formed our district and community leadership team, our DCLT team, another acronym for us to remember. So it's created in conjunction with Midwest PBAS as part of our, you know, grant. I did, and I won't list out, or I won't read everything, but I have who is on our DCLT team. So we have various members of our D124 community. Thank you to all of our principals who have been integral members, but we also have some additional community members that we've invited to be part of our teams. So what we've been doing and what this looks like, especially in the context of PBAS, so our DCLT team, we've been meeting monthly, and we've adopted this interconnected system framework. So this is a partnership like with PBAS, based on a lot of research with PBAS and mental health providers. It's a new souped up multi-tiered system, adding that mental health and that social emotional, and really kind of looking at that in the context of, you know, school supports and PBAS. So we're adopting this framework. We've been meeting, we've, you know, recruited our other community members. We're meeting monthly. We're really looking at our inventory of our current behavioral, social emotional initiatives, our data collection. We've partnered with the Center for Self-Actualization. We have our clinicians in each building, but also adding them to our team. So when we start like looking and analyzing data, they're really integral parts of that. January 9th, professional development. We obviously had Greg come in the morning, and we had our principals kind of do what we call the PBAS reboot. I think that unfortunately, you know, just with COVID, we haven't had a lot of professional development come in or go out. We've had a lot of new staff the past couple of years. We've seen a lot of new challenges in regards to social emotional behavior. So we really just felt like when you're looking at the tiered system, we really needed to start from tier 1, do a reboot, kind of re-explain what PBAS is in the context of the district, so we can kind of move forward with our, you know, new integrated approach. So leading into what's next is really now we're ready for our school installation. So this is really bringing all of our PBAS coaches at the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 level, and having that training and kind of re-looking at our tiered fidelity inventory again. What are our resources? within the district, what data do we typically look at, do our self-assessments. It's also bringing our DCLT team to that training, so introducing our building coaches to the other members. And then looking at, you know, what components that we have, where are our gaps, and like what other sources of data we need to look at to make better decisions in regards to students and interventions.
So that's great. I love all of the planning and the intention that's going into the new reboot. But what's happening currently? Because it sounds like right now we're in a kind of 1 foot here and 1 foot here. And we still have to be collecting data so we know what's going on. So what is that gonna look like right now in current space?
So we're still collecting data, like obviously we still have our PBAS system, we still have our infraction, we're looking at all that data. The schools are looking at data, we're gonna do our school installation, and then we're gonna talk about how we're gonna look at that data and like a new way to look at some of that data.
And what are you using to collect it?
Well, we have our like different accounts, so like our Swiss collects our, we input manually and they collect our infraction data. But we're also talking about looking at like attendance data, looking at, you know, there's so many components that we haven't really looked at that we should be looking at, especially when you're talking about like the mental health and the social emotional piece, nurse visits, attendance data, when we're talking about students with individualized education plan and looking at students specifically and discipline data, really kind of putting that on paper and looking to see if we see trends and like how we're going to intervene and what we need to do.
So is Power School pulling all of that together? Are you utilizing Otis yet?
No, we did an exploration with the company, but we have not adopted Otis at this time.
Because
Something
it's
that
my understanding they have the ability to pull all of that data, so you're not, it sounds like it's a piecemeal. Like you bring me this and you bring me this and you bring me this. It's so labor intensive.
Sure.
Well, and part of it's intensive and it's a lot, sure, if there was a system to put it all together, that would be great. But it's also about like procedures and what data do we really need to look at and what should we look at, and kind of streamlining processes so we're not like, you bring this, you bring this, you bring this, you know, because each building is different. So it's also just like a different view of how to look at data or what data you might wanna look at. Like we might run a bigger report and attendance and that might not be an issue at that building, right? So we're not necessarily looking at that, or
I guess the thing for me is like, I'm so anxious to see progress in this space that if we're spending so much time on collecting the information and analyzing it and having all these meetings and committees, like I'm ready for the implementation part.
Yeah, I would not disagree. I mean, I feel like especially with like the needs of what we've seen in regards to like behavioral crises, like it's a labor intensive process.
It is.
But I think the benefits, it really gets you thinking about what you can be looking at, and although we might not have necessarily like good systems and procedures in place yet, I think that everybody, like individual principals and myself, are taking away bits and pieces that we can look at now to kind of impact individual students now.
And I don't want the impression to be that we've stopped intervention work for students, because we haven't. And I think our principal team can really advocate for the fact that we're progressing forward with tier 2, tier 3 supports in terms of what students need to be successful. What we're really doing is taking a step back and evaluating the system as a whole to say, how can we bring in these community partnerships to also be a part of the intervention process? Because Midwest PBIS would say that we need community partnerships to support the mental and emotional well-being of our students. And that wasn't a current system and process that we had in place, and we need to add that layer to like long-term be successful. And when I think about, you know, Ms. Terrell and I have this conversation frequently, there are kids who need additional not just them as like the individual child needing the support, but the family needing support. And so how do we, from a community lens, support the family and support the child to allow them to both be successful in our environment? And I think there's definitely resources that we could still tap into for, again, long-term success.
Right.
And that's part of PBS when we look at like, you know, the triangle we all look at for academic and tier and that 5% that's in the red. I mean, it's not just necessarily kids that are having behavioral crises, but we also have those students that need like RAP services, that their families are really in crises. And like I've been lucky to be part of schools and on those tier 3 teams that have, you know, I think that all of our buildings really go out of their way for families when they know about things and have really located a lot of awesome resources for them, but it's like pulling that all in, so it doesn't sometimes have to be so labor intensive. Like it's still happening, but like let's make it easy for all of us in regards to resources. Because there's so much out there. And the great thing about Evergreen is there really is a lot of community members that wanna be part of this. They don't necessarily know like what their role is right yet, but they're like really invested in being a part of it and seeing like what could come of it.
Right. Speaking of resources, Dr. Bannock, you reached out to Mr. Curry about becoming a grief-sensitive school.
Yes, thanks, Dr.
Yeah, so I would encourage the other principals to take advantage of that because again, that's monetary resources. Don't leave it on the table. Get in contact with him because that's just an extra support that could benefit the families of your quadrant.
And I do feel like we've had a lot more families come to us and accept that support, even if it's, you know, listening, helping them find resources, having those conversations. And that's the great thing about our buildings and I think our district.
This makes me so happy, knowing where, I mean, PBIS and DIRT and being able to bring that up and you know, talk about that at, you know, this coming meeting, if it happens to be on there, that this is how it works.
And like
It's
one thing
coming
I wanna
together.
say too is like when we're talking about like students in crisis too, like the stress, and Greg kind of spoke to this and it kind of resonated with me, like your own stress and that how that affects your students, but like your own stress. So again, providing those resources and having those resources for our students and alleviating those behaviors, you know, obviously that's where we're like seeing the increased instructional time and hopefully the reduction of stress for our teachers, so.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have Dr. Carlson, and she's going to talk about January Institute Day.
Hi, it's come up a couple of times tonight,
Yes,
so
it
it's kind of fun to be able to speak about it. This definitely was aligned to our strategic plan when you look at that we view behavior through a culturally responsive lens, and that we really need to take what we're hearing from teachers, you know, in that DIRT meeting, and we really needed to pivot because we saw this need. And we wanted to bring some professional development to our teachers and to our staff as a whole so that they could kind of increase the size of their toolbox when it comes to working with students and behaviors. One of the things that we recognized was that in general we have a lot of great student behavior and great behavior management, but that there really are some kids that are in crisis that we do see have significant needs. So what we wanted to do was bring somebody to them, author of Significant 72, which talks about unleashing the power of relationships in today's schools. One of the things that he spoke about specifically, and there were many, it's gotten brought up several times, was we talk about relationships all the time and we instantly think the relationship of the teacher and the student. And we always refer to that when we talk to teachers, you know, build relationships with kids, that's where it's at. And what he really talked about was there's really 4 aspects of relationships within the world of that student. There is the relationship with the student and the teacher, and that is so important, but there's also the relationship with that student and themselves and how they're feeling about themselves and what their inner struggles are. There's the relationship of that student with their peers in that classroom and making sure that we're paying attention to that. And then the relationship of the student with the curriculum. And so kind of opened everybody's eyes, I felt, to looking at all of those aspects. And he speaks of behavior as it is a communication. Behavior, you know, not just a student is, you know, misbehaving, but a student is trying to communicate with you something. And oftentimes that communication is probably one of those relationships pieces that's struggling in that moment. So he gave a lot of like you said, tips and tools that served as reminders. A lot of things that, you know, I could hear in conversations that teachers are already doing. But he really speaks a lot about being intentional. We think we're doing things often a lot more than we actually are. So he talks about, you know, spending 2 minutes with 4 kids a day, you know, like the quick conversation, building those relationships, but in an intentional way. Like you have a list and you're gonna make sure that you have that conversation. You know, it's a private list for yourself, obviously. It's not, you know, posted on the board, but a private list that you in yourself, you say in that morning, I'm gonna get with this kid for today for a couple of minutes, I'm gonna get with this kid today for a couple of minutes. Because oftentimes we find ourselves generally going to the same kids probably. So things about being intentional, but also being proactive. There are a lot of things that he talked about that maybe are not necessarily applicable to your student in crisis. He talked about the fact that once a student is in crisis, their ability to reason is off the table. So you can't go to them and say, well, if you do this for me, then I'm gonna, you know, you won't get in trouble. It's their ability to reason is passed by that point. But meeting them before that point, being proactive with some of these things will help then to hopefully minimize those moments of crisis for the students. So it was a great morning. He had a lot of just very practical tips. Thank you so much to Claudia and Colleen for joining us for some of it. It was great. But I think our teachers were at least able to walk away with some specific things that they would be able to actually be actionable in their classroom the following day. And then the afternoon was wonderfully spent rebooting on PBIS and really kind of learning what that second side of PBIS is, not just behavior. So it's a good day.
One thing I wish that he could have explored on was some de-escalation techniques. You know, when you've got a student that's threatening a teacher or using profanity with another student in the classroom, like sometimes the teacher it's hard for them to process too. You just automatically, sometimes your emotions, you ramp up with that negative energy that's happening. So if there were quick tips to help them process themselves to de-escalate and not go there with the student, I think that could be beneficial to the entire staff.
He talked a little bit at one point, and I don't know if you were there for that part, but he talked about
When I was there, not when,
Okay.
so when we had
When you
tagged
passed
off,
So I
he
left.
did,
Yes.
well, but he did talk about that, and I thought that was really interesting, like, they both need that time to step back, before, you know what I mean?
Right.
And a
And to
reflection.
recognize that
Yeah.
before
Right.
it got too far,
Okay.
so.
And also he spoke about, you know, making sure that once they get to that point, like I said, that their ability to reason, approaching from the side, he used as a tip, then head on, the need for them to breathe during that point. I mean, there's a lot of times where that's
I like
all
that.
that you're going to be able to get out of that student in that moment is to breathe. So kind of adjusting the expectations from a teacher side, what's gonna happen in that situation. Really, it's just to get them de-escalated in the moment. So I think he touched on it at a couple of different points a little bit. But yes, that's so important because we do have some students that
Preventative, I heard the preventatives, I heard the drink the cold water, I heard put your hand on your heart, you know, like, I heard all that, but like,
Movement, get up and move
I
around.
didn't hear,
was- yeah.
you're getting cussed out,
yeah,
don't scream back at the student.
do not
You know?
scream back
Yeah,
at the
for
student.
sure.
Yeah.
And he has
That
different
was what
layers.
He
to
did
it.
refer to it as if you're yelling, it's
If you're
an
yelling
adult
to-
temper
It's
tantrum.
an adult temper tantrum, so like, okay, we all need to remember that, right? Yeah.
I have a few of those at home possibly from time to time. So So, yeah, it was a great day. Any questions or anything else? All right,
Thank you so much.
He was good. I know. Okay. Ms. Hernandez. Okay, we are on to the public comments. And just because I haven't read it recently, you're all gonna listen, sorry. But just a reminder, when people do come to the meetings, which we're welcoming them, the public comments, to respect all of our stakeholders, our commenters, our board, our public, we do adhere very closely to that 3-minute limit for everyone. And we don't always respond, we can't always respond during a meeting, but we certainly will after the fact, so, thank you very much. Board reports. So I have to laugh because first I was supposed to talk about our board governance review that happened last week, except it didn't happen last week because there was some illness and everybody's back 100%, and I'm very glad to see that for all of us. I was very happy that everybody was here, but I did hear back from most of my board members that it makes sense to probably wait at this point until after the elections. There will be at least some movement on the board, and I did reach out to Lori Grant, and she said that that would be a great opportunity to
Meet the new one.
well, and just to do kind of she had a great term for it, but
Set the stage.
right, to really lead right, so that initial, but we will need to get that and a number of other things on the calendar for probably April. And I don't know if everybody received the email because Lori Grant will be. So we were going to meet her replacement last week when things did not happen as planned.
I know, I
think we
just
can-
read the press release today for
Yes,
her.
so,
How exciting.
so it will either be Lori or her
She's the second one to get promoted.
which is great,
Yes.
right? And
Dr.
she's,
Hall got promoted
and
too.
it's board development. She's gonna be awesome at that.
That's great.
So we will commence that again. Y'all will be getting scheduling emails from me again, sorry about that. But that leads us then into board member elections. And so it's a short report, I promise. I applaud all the individuals interested in running for public office. Thank you for your efforts thus far. I know that it is not easy. If anybody understands, it is people who've already run for office. For the April 4th, 2023 election, we have 3 4-year term positions open. We have 1 2-year term position open. Our candidates for those open positions include current board members and also members of our D124 community who are interested in serving the students and community of Evergreen Park. And I believe everyone is here with us this evening, thank you. And mostly just know that we will be sharing more information in the next few months leading up to April, including communications that help us to get to know all of our candidates.
So we met Lauren.
Yeah.
Is Mr. Shepherd here too?
Hi. There we go.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you there.
Welcome you both. I'm really glad that you could be here this evening and I appreciate it. I know you got your board packets. Lots of light reading before bed.
Honestly, I've been reading.
It's very interesting. I love how it all works
This is a
together.
light one, don't let
Yeah,
them
it really
fool you.
was.
This is a very light one.
We thought we'd ease you in, no, I'm kidding. So no, that's wonderful. So yeah, 2 short reports because board governance training. It was supposed to be in October, and then Lori Grant got sick, and then it was supposed to be last week,
And we got
and then 3 out of my 7 board members got sick, so that's okay. Flexibility in all things. So we can then move on to item 8, which is our action items, and our consent agenda item, consent agenda. Eric, was it you who said that it was nerve-wracking when it was this short? Like, I had 2 different meetings before this one, right? So we had a DEI meeting and then we had a foundation, and somebody said, I don't know, it's the short ones that make me nervous, so, but that's okay. So our consent agenda item, item number 1 is to approve the monthly transaction reports for December 2022. Number 2 is to approve fund balance reports for December 2022. Number 3 is to approve the expenditure report and projected payroll report for January 2023. Number 4 is to approve the board minutes from the regular meeting of December 20th, 2022. Number 5 is to approve closed session minutes from the regular meeting of December 2020. That's too many 20s. December 20th, 2022, sorry about that. Number 6 is to approve board minutes from the special meeting of January 11th, 2023. Number 7 is to approve destruction of closed session tapes from September of 2018. Number 8 is to approve the personnel recommendations as listed with 3 additions. If I could have a first motion to approve our consent agenda items.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Rachel. And a second?
Second.
Excellent. And a roll call, please.
Rachel Merrickwin?
Yes.
Denise Jones?
Yes.
Michael Miller?
Yeah.
Judy Rayson?
Yes.
Kim Leonard? Yes. Claudia Parker?
Yes.
And Colleen Clemzak.
Yes.
Motion is passed. Only 8?
I know.
That's it.
I don't
like
have
I'm
any
hurt.
policy numbers to read. I don't
Don't
have
get
any.
used to this.
You know, oh, that's so funny. So, next, we will be recessing to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. And we will not be taking action after we come back from closed session. So thank you all for being with us this evening. Motion to, yes, recess to closed session.
I'll make that motion first.
Second.
Michael is second.
I was gonna say a yes or no, but I like.
Oh.
No, we're
Oh,
good.
no.
You,
Kim Leonard, yes.
I
Michael
know, right?
Miller?
Yay.
Denise Jones?
Yes.
Rachel Merrickwin?
Yes.
Judy Rayson?
Yes.
Claudia Parker?
Yes.
Colleen Clemzak?
yes,
There we go. Motion is passed.
okay. Gotta fill out that form.
I know that, I'm like.
Was I you